still looked pretty good. It looks like companies have lost some of the aggressive pricing power they had earlier in the year, and they're backing off a bit.
Christopher Lowe, Chief Economist, FHN Financial. Always good to check in.
Thanks, David.
We now have that key measure of inflation. It came in right on forecast just now. Personal consumption expenditures, excluding volatile food and energy. That index rose just 0.1% April to May, the smallest increase in about 2.5 years. Prices overall using this measure were up 2.6% in a year. Stocks S&P futures are up 0.2%. NASDAQ futures up 0.3%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business. From small business to big enterprise and everything in between, Amazon Business helps simplify the supplies buying process. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying. And by What Happened in Alabama, a new investigative podcast that delves into personal and historical experiences of intergenerational trauma in the Black community. Available in your podcast app.
Now to the future of Social Security. Last night during the debate, former President Trump said without evidence that President Biden will endanger Social Security. Here's Biden.
The biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security.
In an interview with CNBC back in March, Trump had said there is a lot you can do for, quote, cutting Social Security. The campaign later said the comment was about cutting waste and fraud. Later in last night's debate, Trump worked to draw a line between Biden immigration policy and pressures on entitlement programs.
But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid.
This week here, we've been looking at how Social Security is okay for about another 10 years, but then things come a cropper, and it'll take higher taxes or lower benefits to keep the system sound. Marketplace's Kimberly Adams has more now on how a Social Security crunch back in the 1980s may offer some guidance.
It's April 20th, 1983. Dexy's Midnight Runners is at the top of the radio charts. And at the White House, President Ronald Reagan is signing a law to save Social Security.
Just a few months ago, there was legitimate alarm that Social Security would soon run out of money. On both sides of the political aisle, there were dark suspicions that opponents from the other party were more interested in playing politics than in solving the problem.
But they pulled together a bipartisan commission, buckled down, and at the last minute made a deal. Jennifer Urkelwater teaches political science at the University of Richmond.
They really did kind of like run up to the very deadline before Social Security was going to run out of money for benefits. Nothing like a deadline to create that sense of crisis.
To fix the program, lawmakers made some changes that are on the table now.
They did raise taxes. They did lower benefits by raising the retirement age.
Doug Arnold is author of the book Fixing Social Security, The Politics of Reform in a Polarized Age.
And they put Social Security on the path to solvency for decades and decades. But it literally was within a few months of running out of revenue. And I believe the same thing will happen in 2035.
But some of the fixes back in 1983 were one-time solutions, says Charles Blauhaus at the Mercatus Center.
They exposed benefits to income taxation for the first time. They brought in all new federal employees to pay payroll taxes into the system for the first time. That's obviously not something we can do again because it's already been done.
Another difference between then and now, says Blauhaus, baby boomers are retiring and there are fewer workers paying into the system. So the gap between payroll taxes coming in and Social Security benefits going out has been widening for years.
So now if you wait till the 2030s and say, okay, let's try to fix the trust fund at the last minute, well, you can't do that anymore because by then the annual shortfall is so large that there's no realistic way you could close it.
Plus, there's a pretty big generational imbalance, says Jennifer Urkelwater at the University of Richmond.
The ratio of working age people to support each retiree is shrinking. And so it places a heavier and heavier burden on each individual working aged person.
And the longer Congress waits to find a solution to that problem of the future, the closer it gets to repeating a crisis of the past. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
And it wasn't just a pandemic thing. It could stay hard finding people to hire in America. A new report from the McKinsey Global Institute predicts the worker shortage, which is an expensive hassle for companies, but helps workers get better wages and benefits, is likely to persist. A lot of this are baby boomers aging out of the workforce, sharply increasing available jobs per available worker. McKinsey sees artificial intelligence as a possible way to get jobs done with the workers we have, but despite all the AI excitement these days, it is a technology that needs to prove its usefulness. I'm David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Next time on The People's Pharmacy, we consider how health insurance companies handle claims.
It's not uncommon for a health insurance company to deny approval for a test or treatment.
Physicians complain when they have to spend hours arguing with companies about treatment decisions.
Overcoming health insurance obstacles on the next People's Pharmacy.
The People's Pharmacy comes your way Saturday mornings at 7 on Radio IQ.
The Roanoke City Council special meeting, the special meeting of council for June 28, 2024 is hereby called to order, and I'll ask our clerk today, Ms. Cece Webb, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb. Ms. Whiteboyd.
Here.
Mr. Vollison.
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds. Ms. Sanchez Jones. And Mayor Lee.
Here, and a quorum is present. Let it be noted that Ms. Moon Reynolds sent a statement that I'll read in the discussion period. All right, item number 2 is the purpose of a special meeting. The purpose of this meeting is for City Council to consider the adoption of an ordinance increasing the salaries of the mayor and members of City Council to the maximum allowed by state law in accordance with section 15.2-14.14.6 Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, and convene in closed meeting to consult with legal counsel on a personnel matter requiring the advice of legal counsel pursuant to section 2.2-3711A7 Code of Virginia 1950 as amended. All right, item 3 is the adoption of an ordinance increasing the salaries of the mayor and members of City Council to the maximum allowed by state law in accordance with section 15.2-14.6 1414.6, Code of Virginia 1950, as amended. There is an ordinance.
Move the ordinance. Second.
All right. Just a second, guys. Let me make sure I get my papers correct here. All right, Madam Clerk, can you read the title paragraph?
Yes. An ordinance increasing and establishing the annual salaries of the mayor and city council members for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, providing for an effective date and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, thank you. All right, we're now down to the area of the discussion. And I'm going to call on Attorney Mr. Spencer and possibly David to talk to us about this ordinance and to elaborate a little more on why we're here today doing this.
Real quickly, if I could go over a little history. We've gone back for over the last two times that council has increased council and mayoral salaries. First, back in 2013, that was done in July of 2013 and was done without a public hearing, and then was done again in December of 2019, and again, no public hearing. We do not believe a public hearing is required. Now, the General Assembly this year amended 15.2-1414.6, increasing effective July 1st, the salaries that could be offered to council members and mayors. And for locality our size, between $75,000 and $174,999, population of that level. The increase was the mayor salary can be as high as $47,000 and council salary as high as $43,000. The new code references that that would be if you adopted this after July 1st, that a public hearing would be held pursuant to notice in the manner and form provided in 15.2-1427. If we look at the amended version of that, that talks about requiring an advertisement of twice, but it only references counties. So the provisions set forth in 15.2-1427 requires public hearing in counties. There was a mistake made when we talked to VML. Michelle Gowdy said the idea was to include both cities and counties, but it was not done. So under the law, I can make a very valid argument that we don't even require a public hearing after July. But in the spirit, she's asked, if you adopt something after July 1st, please try to follow that, and that would probably get clarified or corrected in the next General Assembly. We're here today just to eliminate any questions whatsoever. We know that you can adopt this ordinance without a public hearing. We've done it twice before, and therefore we thought the best course of action was to have this special meeting and to allow council to consider it in the same format as it had before. And of course, upon adoption, it wouldn't become effective until July 1st. And realize, just in case there are folks out in the public wanting to hear this, the salary increases do not take place until July of 2025. So that's when they would come up and become effective. So the law says that you have to adopt it at least 4 months prior to the next election. Given that the 4th of July is this week, that means we would have had to act either on by Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and there wasn't enough time to schedule a public hearing, even though one's not legally required. And therefore, if you want to consider this and have it become effective by July 2025, we need to act in this manner.
If we do not, when does this become effective?
It wouldn't become effective till July 1st. If we went beyond that, say we had a public hearing and adopted it at the July 15th meeting, then it wouldn't become effective until July 2027.
Okay.
So that would be another 2-year delay just for that 2 weeks.
So we got, if we don't do it, then July, of course, July 24th, we know that's 2024, we know that's not going to happen then anyway, but we'll go through July 25.
Yes, if we adopt today, or even if it gets adopted on Monday, if we only have 4 votes, and then reconsider and get 4 more votes on Monday at the regular council election, it would still become effective July 1st, 2025, because we're more than 4 months from the election in November 5th.
Do we need more than 4 votes?
You would need more than 4, you'd need 5 votes today to trigger the waiver of the second reading.
What happens if we do not get 5 votes?
If you get 4 votes, then we'd have second reading on Monday.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Does that help? And David, is there anything you want to add?
That is correct, Mr. Spencer.
Okay.
That if we delay, it would not go into effect until July 1, 2027, 3 years from July 1.
All right, let me call on Mr. Folsom.
I was just going to ask the question that you did, which was whether or not after July 1st, how long would it be until the next time that the salary would be able to be increased? So I have no questions.
Okay. Anybody?
City Attorney, could you share what other localities have already taken this action prior to July 1st? Just a few of them. I know multiple have.
If I remember, multiple, Portsmouth has, I believe Richmond has. I know it's on the agenda for July 2nd in Danville, and I'm trying to, those are the people I have spoken with.
My understanding is there are a number of other localities in
there
Virginia
are.
that have a long, exhaustive list.
Yes, there are, and many are not having public hearings. Some are because their charter requires it, or as encouraged by VML, I think Danville has advertised once for a public hearing, even though they don't believe it's required.
But a number of them are taking action before July 1st in order for it to take effect following their next municipal election, or else it won't be done in time.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. Could I just make a few additional comments?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to also share that, a majority of the people that will be voting on this today will not benefit from this at all. I'm at least going to support this because I believe it's the right thing to do, that adequate compensation should come with a position that requires almost full-time attention. And doing so opens the door to make sure that more people, working class people, younger people, have an opportunity to serve.
All right.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, Sam. That's right.
Mr. Spencer, did the localities that did the increase, did they do it in the 11th hour?
11th hour, yes, some are.
That means
Yes.
before their last council meeting?
Yes, or taking it up on, say, July 1st or July 2nd. Yes, there are several out there that I know are coming because this just passed this year. The timing of it is such that localities are put in the position, if they wish it to take effect, July 1st of 2025 for the increase. There's this short window to do it in.
And this was approved on April 8th, correct?
Correct.
The question I have is, if it were approved on April 8th, we wait till the 11th hour for Roanoke City and do it in a special meeting on a Friday. Now, I know that the cities were omitted as far as requiring a public hearing, but clearly that was a mistake because I got information from the co-patron who sponsored this bill, and that was the intent. So, yes, we would take advantage of a mistake. Number one is what I have an issue with. And number two, this is the new ordinance. The new ordinance recommends a public hearing, and we have not done that. And I know other localities have done it, but I'm thinking about the residents here that I serve in the city of Roanoke. So that concerns me, but I just wanted to reiterate the fact that that was a mistake because clearly they would intend for counties and localities to have a public hearing when you're increasing the salaries over 100%.
That's what I understand from VML, is that that was the intent, but that isn't what the General Assembly adopted.
I know,
that
it was
in
a
the law.
mistake. It was a mistake. I
Yes.
understand. I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Well, let me say that I've sat through council issues, debates on salaries longer than anybody here has, over 20 years. And, you know, we have always had a struggle with this issue because people have difficulty accepting the fact that, in essence, we give ourselves raises. But that's part of the process. I think there were some mistakes, or not mistakes, but I think there were some issues regarding what we should do, what we shouldn't do, and how this should work between counties and cities. But let me just say that, and as Mr. Priddy stated, few of us, and I personally won't be the recipient of none of this. However, I feel that I have worked, and other members of council have worked so hard to get this salary, get our salaries above, I like to say, minimum wage, because in essence, that's where we've been for a number of years, given the number of hours that we spend working. The 20 hour per week is really from my standpoint, that's a joke in terms of the hours that we work. Now, we've done this, and I thought about this because I was here in 2013, I was here in 2019, and I didn't remember a public hearing then. And let me say that public hearings to these issues, as we've seen with the budget issue, and we have people to come in the budget, and I think sometimes budget issues, we have about as many people here at those meetings that we have right here today in terms of the public hearing. And I've been supportive. I wouldn't have been here this long if I wasn't supportive of public hearings. But I think there are certain times and things that we have to do, and the public hearing that we're talking about is not a public hearing which is on land use, which fills this room up when we're talking about land use issues, or issues as it relates to zoning. This is something that I think we who have been here a long period of time have strived to get to this date. It's unfortunate that I won't be a part of it, but we've strived to get here. And I do not want to see us pass this opportunity by to 2027. Matter of fact, 2027, more than the two people, if other people may not be here in 2027. They may not be sitting on this dais right now, who still may not qualify for that. So I think that's important to remember if we don't take this significant action today. So that's why with I can't say no dog in the fight, we do, because I appreciate the work that my colleagues over the years have worked so hard to do, the things that we've gone through, and to get to this point, and to me, to drop the ball right when we were getting ready to cross the goal line. And I'm looking at cities of similar size as Roanoke. I mean, there are a lot of urban cities, but I'm talking about maybe even Portsmouth, for one, is a city that's similar in size. And I always had an issue, and it goes back. I remember Mr. Bestridge and I were looking at this and discussing it a few years ago, and Portsmouth at the time was making, their pay was more than ours were. And I think our population might have been a little bit more at the time. And they were still making more than we have. So we've always been the brunt, I feel, of cities our size. I'm not talking about localities. I'm talking about major cities. The Richmonds, the Hampton Roads cities have always been a notch in front of us. And I'm just concerned with, hey, we got an opportunity now to make this happen. I think personally, and I say personally, to correct the wrong. And I don't think we should let this opportunity pass us by. And all of us here recognize and appreciate public hearings, but we have an opportunity to do this today without the public hearing. We've done it before. It wasn't required that time, but we have an opportunity to do that. And I just think that it's incumbent upon us, and me, I feel, that we should take this action today and not wait or would delay this until sometime in July, because again, we're looking at 2027, and that changes the dynamics of what we're doing. So I'm supportive of this action that we're taking today, and I think it's one that's long overdue, and that's coming from somebody that's served in this capacity for 20 years when we were making minimum wages and salaries go back then. And I think it's time to take advantage of this opportunity. All right?
Mayor,
yes, sir.
sorry, I just wanted to add or ask one other question.
Sure.
When was the last time the state legislature increased the maximum for city council pay?
Oh, my goodness. I believe it was back in 2019 when we increased ours.
And Mr. Mayor, can I just add that I am not objecting to council being compensated. I'm out there too every day, all day. Council work hard. They really do. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve an increase. I'm saying that we should not implement an increase on a Friday in a special meeting without some sort of notification to our residents that we are going to double our salary. In 2019, it was a $6,000, $7,000 increase, not $20,000. That is my issue, Mr. Mayor, and I just want the public to know that I have no quorums with increase in council salaries. It's just the manner in that we're doing it today. Thank you.
All right.
Barely got something to say, but I didn't know if I wanted to go after you thought you were going to read a statement. Yeah. Or are you not going to read a statement?
Yeah, Ms. Moon, I'm going to read her statement that she has prepared. She's out of town on a family vacation. I wish I could speak to that myself, but I'll go ahead and read that. On vacations, and when people take vacations, that's another meeting. That's another meeting that we have to have. But this is a special call meeting. So she's on family vacation. I regret my inability to attend this special call meeting regarding the proposed ordinance to increase the salaries of the mayor and city council members to the maximum allowable under state law as per section 1414.6 of the Code of Virginia as amended, and therefore would respectfully ask that the following statement be read into the record. Given the current budget constraints and tax burden faced by our residents, and primarily the absence of substantial citizen input regarding such a significant salary increase for future mayors and council members, I believe this matter should not be deliberated at this time. While I am not opposed to discussion such an adjustment, I strongly feel it should occur after thorough consultation with the new appointed city manager and city staff, which will allow ample time to consider the financial implications and funding sources. Therefore, I respectfully urge that this matter be deferred to a future council meeting for further consideration. Sincerely, Stephanie Moon Reynolds, council member. that's her position on that, and I wanted to read that. But let me say this, and we talk about the current budgets and the situations. Again, those are matters that we have to consider, but I don't see that as being, I don't necessarily agree with that as being issues that in terms of a budget. We always have budget constraints in whatever we do, but I've worked with 3 city managers, a superintendent, and they have always, where we needed to find money, found money to do what we needed to do, what I think is important. So again, just responding to this note, I am still of the opinion that we need to take this action today. Mr. Prudy.
Mayor Lee, thank you for recognizing me a second time. I'd just like to reiterate that this council is a continuing body, and any policy that we adopt will take effect for the future, regardless of who sits here. I've much perceived what this council has been doing, and especially in this year, is helping prepare future councils and the future of Roanoke in a best position for success. I think adopting this so that it's effective for July 1st of 2025 is the best way to ensure that those councils will be successful so they can devote the full time and attention that this job needs.
All right, thank you. With that being said, I think we're ready to call a roll.
No, you're not. Sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry. I hope I could get through this. I agree with some of the things that Ms. Whiteboy said. You know, it's such a short notice. And I also understand Mr. Spencer's position that we do not need to hold a public hearing for this issue. My issue is the amount of money, as Ms. Whiteboy said, is 100%. And it's just in a short amount of time that we're making this decision, so I'm a little bit torn between that. When it comes to the public already thinks that we make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I see the comments on, on social media. We're here making all this money when we only barely make $23,000, which is our choice to be here. I understand that. But for the public, I'm sorry that they think that we make all this money. And I also concerned about our raises as opposed to some of our city employees that are not making, that their raises was not 100%. I understand that because of legislation, and that's why we are where we are today. So that's what I have to say right now, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Well, again, I think we're ready to vote. I've said what I think we need to say. I think it's important that if we do not do this today, we're looking at 2027. And I think, insofar as I'm concerned, I think it's a missed opportunity if we don't take advantage of this. And what the public think is, I learned a long time ago, that's our fault. They're educated, they should be educated, and they know more than what you realize in terms of what we're making, the salaries that we're making. And, and I was involved in turf fights when they looked at, we were making less than people who are smaller than we are. And so this is an opportunity for me to correct the wrong. And sometimes I think the public has to trust us to make those decisions, I think, that are beneficial for this council. And again, this council and other councils I've worked with have worked hard over the years. And so I got an opportunity before leaving this office to, I think, correct something that I think has been long overdue in terms of what our salaries are. People may think that. So I'm ready to vote, Madam Clerk. You can call the roll, please.
Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Ms. Whiteboy. No. Mr. Vollison.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Aye. And Mayor Lee.
Aye. So we have 4 votes. Mr. Spencer, where does that put us? We have to come back on Monday?
On Monday, we'll have this on the agenda for second reading. And again, please remember that cities, as the code is drafted, are not included in the public hearing comment, plus this is a second reading that'll revert back. And so it can be considered. If there are 4 votes a second time, it will pass.
Okay.
Yes. Let me ask for clarity, will it require 4 votes or just a majority of council members present?
Majority of council that's present.
Okay. So
Because we're losing a vote today.
Well, you're gaining one on Monday with someone new, but in the event there are only 5 people present, you'd only need 3 votes.
Correct.
For the second reading. Just want to make sure.
There's only how many people?
If there's only 5 people present for a quorum, you would only need 3, a majority, for it to pass a second time instead of 4.
Correct.
Mayor Lee, may I make a suggestion for the second reading? I'll note that public hearing is not required, and one was not required today or in the past. There's always opportunity for public comment before action is taken at the second meeting. That at least gives an opportunity for citizens to be heard and be put on the record. But I will stress again, and I know I will not be here to take that vote, that is important that this go into effect July 1st of 2025 so that future councils be prepared to focus their full time and attention to a position that real solutions can be sought out if you can be here, more than every other Monday.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Does that do that on that item? We'll move on down.
Takes care of that item.
Okay. All right, item number 3 is, no, not 3. Item number 4 is a request of the city attorney to convene in a closed meeting pursuant to section 2.2-3711 A7 Code of Virginia 1950 as amended to consult with legal counsel on a personnel matter requiring the advice of legal counsel. I need a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you. All right, council will be in recess for a closed meeting. Thank you.